Good afternoon. If you're on the East Coast, Dr. Gary Rademacher here from the Business Academy. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you here. I tell you what, to get started here, we have a special guest, Dr. Tim Steflik, that I'll introduce here in just a moment. But if you can have your cameras on, that'd be fantastic. And also on the Zoom, if you can have your first and last name on the Zoom, that'd be great. Um, you know, we like to communicate back and forth as much as we can. And I will leave the last 10 to 15 minutes for question and answer. But if you have questions as we're going, please use the chat box. And having said that, I know that this conversation, um, this webinar is really, an interesting subject. Dr. Tim Steflik is very successful. He has 5 offices. And I tell you what, when I look at him and follow him on social media, I really see 90% of his communication, he's with his family. He seems to be somewhere else in the country or in the world, for that matter. And so what I've been so impressed with Tim is the fact that you do have 5 practices, and I would say that from a father's perspective, I've always been admired and impressed with how much time you do spend with your family, and that's a top priority for you. And so I really am impressed by that, because some of us have a hard time with one. I know I've had a couple, but I've had a lot of issues with just one, right? And so for those of you who don't know, Dr. Tim Steflik, he's in Florida here. And so Tim, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Yep. Thanks for having me, Gary.
Yeah.
Nice to see everybody.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, so I want to get started. So again, if you guys have questions, use the chat box. But I want to start off just like why did you decide to get into chiropractic? Like, what was that motivating factor for you to jump into this profession?
So I think like most of us and doctors, had a good experience with chiropractic. I worked for a chiropractor. I went to school at BYU in Utah and was working for one for probably $6 an hour, $5 an hour, taking notes while I was in college. And I was playing on the rugby team there and would get beat up quite a bit. And he would treat me, and it was awesome. I got amazing results, felt better than everybody else on the team. And but really working for him is what I saw the difference he can make. We all know, I think, how well chiropractic works. And every time he'd step out of the room, the patients would say, "Are you thinking of becoming a chiropractor? You need to become a chiropractor. He's changed my life." And I don't know any other profession where they talk so highly of their doctors where it changes their life. So that's where my story started with chiropractic.
Awesome. And yeah, where did you go to chiropractic school again?
So I went right in Port Orange, which is like 30 minutes away from where I practice, or
Yeah,
where I started practice. Um, Port Orange is just Palmer Chiropractic College in Florida.
got it. Got it. A question I have for you that just goes right to, like, I know that when I graduated, I was an associate for about a year before I pulled that trigger into going into entrepreneurship. What was that journey for you? Did you come out like, hey, I'm going to start my own practice right away, or were you an associate?
So I jumped right into it. I kind of knew, I wrote down goals when I was like 10 or 11. And for some reason, I still have that paper that I kept. And one of them on the list was to be my own business owner, right? I wanted to have my own business. My dad was a small business owner. I saw like some of the flexibility it can provide. I guess I saw the benefits of it when it's done right. And so I kind of knew that I wanted to have my own practice. I didn't know how long. I guess as an associateship, I wanted to probably just do things my own way and get started on that journey sooner. So I found a practice for sale and jumped right in. It was a good deal. The guy was retiring and had a patient base, so I had instant cash flow. It's a pretty good
Yeah,
situation to hop into.
yeah, that's great. The funny thing is, you mentioned where you went to school. I lectured there last year. I gave a talk to the students, and when I spoke to them, I asked that question, hey, do you want to start your own business right away, or do you want to be an associate? And Quentin, you were there, and I remember like 95% of the room wanted to be an associate. And it really was because there was this fear of the unknown, like of owning a business. And here you just jump right into it. Um, and it sounds like you credit that to your upbringing a little bit. Your dad was a business owner as well, you said?
Yeah, I mean, worked for some of our enemies, the insurance company, just as a selling insurance, right? But
Mhm.
yeah, I could just see like there were certain things that he had that I wanted to have that I didn't think he could get through other means. And so, yeah, running a business was something I wanted to do for sure.
Wow. Okay. Well, let me ask you this: outside of your dad, which seemed to be he was really instrumental, but any other mentors or role models that you had, like just jumping right out of school and going into practice?
At that point in my life, it really was like my dad, and he's the one that actually, getting funding. And I don't know why he did it still, but it wasn't a large amount for buying that practice, but I don't think I could have got a loan from a bank. But he loaned me the money and we set up a payment plan and, paid him back like I would a bank. But he believed in me and trust. And I look back and like, I don't know if I would have believed in myself. I don't know what he was thinking, right? Like I had no
Yeah.
business background or knew what I was doing, but,
Yeah.
and I struggled that first year because of it probably too. I didn't struggle, but I got by just fine, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted.
Yeah. Like, walk us through just like what were some of those main steps when you first launched your practice? Because I don't know who's all on here. I think there's might be some people who have don't even own one. Hey guys, in the chat box, if you can kind of just throw in there like are you an associate? Do you own your own practice? Do you have multiple practices? That way we kind of get to know the audience here a little bit. But kind of walk us through the main steps, like your market research, like the location. Did you scout it? You mentioned securing funding through your dad. Can you walk us through how that looked for you?
Yeah, so for the first one, I graduated from school from Palmer in September, and in August I still didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know if I was going to do an associateship if I couldn't find a practice, but my wife and I we were driving all around Florida. We wanted to stay in Florida to find a practice for sale, and for me, I was really chiropractic practices are highly like they're a good deal to buy for the most part. They make pretty good cash flow, and they're pretty well underpriced for the most part because it's a lot of it's goodwill. And so we look and see, okay, well, there's this practice for sale. It's $100,000, but it might make 250 gross. You're making 100,000 back in your first year, probably net or more. So we were looking for the right fit for the right community where we could feel at home and feel comfortable. And so that's kind of how we landed in Edgewater was our first location and just the right fit with the community and the doctors. And kind of when I drove into the town, I knew it was it. I did not do my first location. I didn't do it right. I I would went off of my heart and not my mind, which is not a good recommendation for business. I was like, it feels right, looks right. Let's do it. So,
Hmm.
but I also will say, money likes speed, and so if you move fast and I'm not saying you move fast with everything, but if there's an opportunity, moving fast does reap a lot of benefits. And those that sit and think about it, they miss out on a lot of opportunities. And so I think, we saw it, we said, let's move with it. And that's what we did.
Wow, that's awesome. So I'm assuming being get out of school, you start your own practice. When did you start your family? Was it right in that same time frame?
Yeah, I had one kid at that time, one kid, one practice. I had him when I was in chiropractic school. My wife did, right? So with about a year left. And I remember, yeah, that was fun having a kid in chiropractic school. My wife was still trying to work, and yeah, so our real small family just getting started right out of school, and then family started to grow after that. But um, that was kind of my wake up point too, that something needed to change was having family, right? I think I had more motivation than my classmates because I had a child to provide
Yeah,
for, which was different
totally
than
makes
maybe
sense.
somebody who was single and didn't have a family.
Hmm.
And so that
Sure,
was my motivation.
totally. Yeah. When did you come on board with the Business Academy? Was it your first practice? Was it into multiple practice? When did you first join up with the Business Academy?
So I struggled for about a year, and then, like I say, struggled. It wasn't bad. We still made pretty good money, definitely for our first year coming out. It was, I think our gross was 250 or 230 or somewhere in that range, and didn't have a whole lot of overhead. I had one staff, front desk and one part-time billing person. And but what there's wealth in money, and then there's wealth in time, and there's wealth in health. There's different things that you can measure your wealth with, and I was lacking the time. And so my 1-year-old son, there would be days where I would get up and I would drive to the office before he woke up, and then I would drive home and my wife had already put him to bed. And to me, that was a lost day that
Yeah.
I didn't see my son. And he probably wouldn't remember, he doesn't remember that at all. He's 14 now, but to me it felt like, well, why am I working if I can't spend time with my family and enjoy them? And so I did that, not every day was like that, but I did that for a year. And I realized, like, I really want to grow the practice so I don't have to be here every day, every moment. I could take off, time. And if we went on vacation, I felt terrible because as the practice, not only is the practice not making money, but I'm out here spending money, because that's what you do on vacation is you spend money, flights, lodging, entertainment, whatever it is that you're doing. And so I felt bad on vacations. I didn't want to take vacations because I felt that way, but yet I wanted to spend time with my family. So
Hmm.
to me, the only logical option was to grow the practice to a point where I could have somebody fill in for me and have the practice not skip a beat. So that's when I reached out to the business academy, and they walked me through how many hats I was wearing, what I was doing it all. I was doing too much. And so if I wanted to step out, I had to fill those other roles with the organization
Hmm.
and the practice. So 1 year in, I joined the business academy. That's a long answer to a short question.
I tell you what, you're wiser than me. I had a lot of different coaches and consultants for my first 10 years before I joined the business academy. And it sounds like the business academy, you started in that first year and you've been with the business academy ever since.
Yep, still with it. I keep renewing, every year, because it's a successful action that helps. And
Yeah.
so I do it now for two reasons. I do it for myself. There's a mastermind groups that we, other people with multiple practices that we help each other with, and help each
Mhm.
other grow. And it's almost a competition to see, not a competition, but we push each other, to see
Yeah.
who can grow and do the most. And then also the training for my staff. So, training my front desks and training my marketers and training my
Mhm.
case managers and training the whole, even my associates. There's training that goes with them as well too. So there's still a lot of training we have to do, but a lot of it is supplemented and helps with the business academy.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. I'm going to go right into growth and expansion now. So you got the first office going, you hired the business academy, things start to pick up for you. How did you know it was time to expand beyond one location?
So, I mean, it took a while. I mean, it was probably 3 or 4 years of being with the business academy. We moved to a bigger building. We had hired more staff. Our building, we doubled the size. We were up to 3,000 square feet. And I felt like we kind of maxed out that location as much as we could in Edgewater, little town of Edgewater, 20,000 people, whatever it was. And we had a couple associates working for me, so I had the time to go look at, another location. And then, kind of for me, it wasn't like expand just to expand. It was because we had people saying, I wish you had a location here. Some of our marketing was pulling people from other locations. Some of it was family. I had family living in another town that I lived in while I was going to chiropractic college up in Flagler Beach, Palm Coast, which is about 45 minutes, 50 minutes away, and had a lot of connections up there as well too. And so it, kind of just played itself out. I was like, well, it makes sense. Let's put one up here, um, and see how it goes.
And if my memory serves me correct, there was a time, I'm not sure which practice it was, but um, you've started five that have been successful, but there was one along the way that, had a little hiccup, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that experience? Because, I think sometimes people think that, people with your success, it's just smooth sailing and, you know, you start one practice and you start another, and, there's problems that develop along the way, regardless if you have one practice or two or three or regardless of the volume of patients that you see. But um, can you share that story regarding like the practice that you tried opening and you worked it, but then you made a business decision to move away from that. Can you
Yeah, we
talk about
had
that?
twice that's happened actually. So I think between practice one and two, we had one where I was going to open up another location with a partner, and it it would have worked okay. I don't know. It just wasn't gaining the traction that we thought it would. There was a lot of things I could see organization wise that I didn't have the control I wanted. And so we bumped, I said, we're gonna close that, go back to one. Then we went to two, and then going to three, it happened again, actually. Another partner and location and idea and said, let's try it. And yeah, lost quite a bit of money on that one actually too. Some months it did great, and then other months it didn't. And kind of a little bit different model on that one, but you don't know unless you try. And so, you would never get to five unless you have two that fail along the way. So,
Yeah.
I won't get to 10 unless I probably have another one that fails somewhere along the way too. It's not, that in 1,000.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that plays to just the the key word I'm thinking of is persistence. Like, you have a vision and a goal, and you kept persisting through it even when you've had some losses, which I think in any work endeavor you're going to have losses, and you definitely have shown persistence. Just out of curiosity, you're in practice two or three right now. Um, how many kids are you at right now at home?
I don't know. Probably about the same. Probably
I don't
about, it
know,
seems like they've grown about the same as the number of kids. I don't know.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always,
My kids are about 2 to 3 years apart, all of them. So I've
yeah,
got 14 down to age 3. And yeah, the practices were about the same, every 2 to 3 years, it seemed like.
yeah. I've always laughed just in having conversations with you. We've always joked around about like it's like you have a one practice for every kid that you have, and I'm like, I think this is his generational wealth idea is to pass one office down for every kid. So I don't know if you've had those conversations with the missus, if you're going to continue to have practices, if you're going to continue to have kids, but it's fun to joke around with you about that.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not sure either yet what the plan is. Sometimes it's too far to even think that far ahead, but yeah.
Hey, so coming back to like when you start expanding like this, like what strategies or systems did you put in place to ensure quality and consistency across all of these locations?
Yeah, so so I think initially the biggest thing to get to even being able to do another location was making sure that we had one that was running efficiently. And so that was um making sure that each department had somebody in charge of it. They had a statistic for that department, and they were responsible for whatever happened in that department. And so that was, for me, that was the biggest or division. That was the biggest takeaway, is that there has to be um someone in every division that is responsible for whatever's happening in that division. And so for me, marketing, who's in charge of marketing? A lot of practices you'll see, or I'll see, I used to be where, hey, I need more new patients. I put a lot of energy and attention on marketing. Patients come in, we get busy, and then I don't have time to do marketing. And so then the practice starts to dip again. And then you say, I got to jump back into marketing again. And you're doing that the same thing with your sales division or your closing division. You're doing it with your um, maybe billing or quality control, or any of the other hats, expansion things. And so trying to juggle them all at the same time is really not possible to have expansion. You have to have organization and systems in place of things from like weekly meetings and daily huddles and things like that make a big difference to keeping everybody organized. Written SOPs, written policies, keeping people on policy. If someone's not doing what they are supposed to be doing, then you got to hold them accountable. For me, the biggest thing recently that I've noticed is our HR department. Who's in charge of hiring, firing, quarterly reviews, annual reviews, raises. The manager that we have that's in charge of that, she was out for about 2 weeks. She had a death in the family, and when she was out, I was like, holy cow, she does a lot. Like I don't realize how much she was doing. And it kind of fell back on me because we don't have a backup for that position yet. And we had two or three positions that we needed to fill, and we had a lot that needed to be done. And without our, the good thing was I had those written up, those systems written up, and I could send them to the individuals in each office and said, here's how you do a working interview. Here's how you do a group interview. Let me send that SOP to you. Read through it. We'll run through it once, and then you can go ahead and do it. And it still operated smooth enough with her out. So
That's great. That's great. You know, I've put up on the screen, everyone. You can scan that QR code. One of the things that we're doing with the Business Academy today is, basically giving you guys a 2 hours of practice analysis session. It's with Quentin. Quentin has helped thousands of practices. If you want to learn how Tim went about going from, 1 to 5 practices, you can have that call with Quentin. But in essence, um, what the Business Academy teaches, and Tim kind of has been speaking to this a bit, is we teach you how to be organized and how to operate off of what we call an organizing board. And there's different divisions in that organization, right? You guys have a marketing division, you have a communications division, you have an executive division, and there's training for all this, right? There's hiring training, there's HR training, there's how to hire associate training, there's how do you quality control an organization, how do you handle your report of findings, your sales division. So these are all things that the Business Academy trains on. And so um, I love how you answer that question, Tim, because it's almost like you created these standard operating procedures that you took from one office to the next, and you systematize everything. And I think I've had this experience before, and I think you have too. And when you put these systems in and you get people and staff trained up to do this for you, instead of you being in it, now all of a sudden you're kind of over it, you're working on it, which is a completely different mindset compared to when probably your first few years that you mentioned earlier, like you're going into the office before the sun comes up and you're not getting home till the sun comes down, right? It's 24/7, 365 grind. And now, like I said, you're kind of like all over the place. I'll see you at a BYU game one moment, and then you're skiing the next, and then you're in Hawaii, and I can't keep up with your travels. And you're able to do that because I think of the systems that you've put in, which um, to me just sounds like the very definition of freedom. You get to do what you want to do when you want to do it.
yeah, that's kind of what I said at the beginning with your, different levels of wealth. And I'm not saying levels like one's above the other, but you can have all the money in the world, but if you have to work every day to have that money, then is it worth it? Or is the time, time is the most valuable resource that we have because it's the only one that's truly limited. And so, heard on a podcast this week and it was eye-opening. Would you trade places with Warren Buffett, net worth of $120 billion, but you have to be 95 years old?
Yeah.
You have to be his age. How many people would trade places with him? And virtually no one is going to say yes because no one wants to be 95 years old. That's because they don't want to give up that time, right? The time that we have. And we all want to live the life that we have, and it's not worth the money to do it. Not saying that you can't have both to a degree, but you can have both. But you have to put the systems in place so you can free up your time to what you need to do. And yeah, to me, it's like I'm never going to regret the things that I do with my family.
And that's what's always impressed me so much about you. I think part of that is because I've looked at my own career, and you can't get that time back, to your point. And I spent many years grinding, and I'm envious of how you've managed this for yourself. Which just congratulations on that. I mean, you've just really done well.
Thanks, Gary.
At the same time, I have to say, like, you're not only have 5 practices, but Tim, I'm gonna just shout some things out for you. I mean, you have time to go to the state capitol. I've seen you at the state capitol, fighting for chiropractors' rights. You're also the president of the Are you the president right now of the FCA or the vice
No,
president?
I'm treasurer. I got a couple more years till I'm president. So yeah.
Yeah. So you're very active in the chiropractic community. So, I mean, I'm just like, to do that, the level of organization that you have has to just be over the top. So I want to shift gears and talk about operational and team management here. You know, what qualities do you look for when you're hiring a staff member now? Because I keep hearing, for instance, it's gotten worse over the years. It's 1 in 100 are hireable. It's hard. I hear of doctors saying all the time how difficult and how hard it is to find someone. What qualities do you look for? And maybe talk. You mentioned a little bit about your hiring processes, but maybe explain how you go about that, especially for 5 locations.
Yeah, well, we've got our regional manager who's in charge of the hiring, but the good thing is we've got such a good team established now that it's also, you got to go through the group. There's two, so I guess we start off with a lot of applicants, right? As many applicants as you can. You have to have a good ad written, and then we do a group interview, which is your speed dating. Bring as many people into the office as you can, maybe 15, 20 people at the same time. And you're spending literally a minute face to face with them just to judge how their communication is, how their appearance is, do they show up on time, quick things. You can eliminate half of them or more right there. Usually we narrow it down to 2 or 3 after the group interview. Say, hey, these are our top 2 or 3 that I could see, they've got great communication, great smiles, whatever. Then we go into usually some testing. So we do personality testing, we do IQ testing, we do just general aptitude testing. There's a few new ones that we've thrown out there. What's their work motivation? Is their motivation team driven? Is it production driven? Is it purpose driven? And that kind of helps us see if they're going to fit in. And then we'll do like a long working interview where they're there for an hour, and those top 2 or 3 candidates, if they've tested well, they did well in the group interview, and their resumes look good, then we'll have them do a task for 30 minutes to 45 minutes of either calling leads, something that's relatable to their task. And we want to see, can they duplicate? Can they follow the standard operating procedure? Can they follow the instructions? And then can they get results from that as well too? And if they can do those 2 things and the team likes them, then they're probably going to get hired. So we're looking for those good fits. One thing that I really like, we get a lot of compliments. Our Google reviews are mostly on our staff. Doctors get mentioned as well too, but they're friendly, they smile, they're kind, they're good people. And Marriott Hotels has supposedly similar staff, and they asked him how do they get their people to be so happy, and he says we just hire happy people. You can't teach
Yeah.
somebody to just be happy, so you look for those people who are genuinely already have a light about them that are shining and
Mm.
are going to be happy, not obviously a grumpy person. So yeah.
Yeah. Great. That's awesome. I mean, I really like group interviews, just especially when you have a busy practice, because you can really it really saves time. And it's nice to see people interacting when they come in. How do they interact? To your point, are they happy? Are they social, et cetera, et cetera? So, moving to patient care, how do you maintain such high standards of patient care and services across all of your clinics that you have?
So yeah, that has to do with who you hire there as well too, right? With the doctors and the training that goes into the doctors. So we're integrated. We have some medical providers as well too, nurse practitioners. Um, we got 3 nurse practitioners and 6 chiropractors. And so it's just you gotta, are they willing to learn your systems and how you do it, and are they willing to follow those systems and not deviate too much into their own thinking, because
Mhm.
and then provide good opportunities for those associates as well too. So it's not how little can we pay them, but are we helping them reach their goals as much as they're helping us reach ours? And so if we're doing that together, then it's going to work for both of us.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great. So, what talk to me about the day in the life of Dr. Steflik? Like, what do you do as a because we train at the business academy, like there's 3 types of employees, right? There's the owner, the founder, there's the executive, and then or the manager, and then there's a technician. So when we're treating patients, we're being technicians. What's your life like now? I mean, because you're not treating patients anymore, I don't think. What's the day in life of what you do?
So definitely doing some owner and founder duties for sure. There's I still love to do a lot of the networking and marketing aspect of the practice. So, part of our practice is personal injury, not a huge percentage, probably 20%. But, those relationships are fun to maintain and to keep. We do some workers' comp stuff. So there's relationships there that we have to maintain and keep as well, too. But then there's vision, like looking at, I'll look at stats. I get stats sent to me every day. The main stats from each office are emailed to me every day, and then I look at stats to see where things are at, what are going on, what's going on, and then kind of issuing orders or directives to those staff members like, hey, we need to we're ready to hire a new physical therapy tech in this office. Our numbers are at the point where we can do that. Or hey, we need to fire this person or get rid of them or find out what's going on and fix this problem. So I'll spend a lot of time doing stuff like that, and then kind of planning. I'm always looking for our next move we're going to do as a company. What else is out there with services? What else is out there with medical services or whatever it is that we're available that's going to help the community and help the patients and be profitable, then we want to be a part of it. So yeah, there's things I'm already thinking of. Where's the next few locations going to be and stuff like that. That's researching those things and talking to the right people about it.
Yeah. You know, Tim, you did mention you have medical providers on your team, so sounds like you're integrated as well. Um, can you? There may be some people on here who are integrated, and so what unique challenges or advantages does the medically integrated model present for you?
Yeah, so I mean, there's challenges for sure, but there's a lot of rewards. There's the reason we did it is we would see patients getting cortisone shots in their knees, and cortisone's terrible. So we said we can offer something at least better than that. And if they trust us and know us, then we may as well offer other solutions. So there's hyaluronic acid injections, there's PRP injections. We do a lot of trigger point things. There's a lot of advantages. We can do a whole scope of things with um, our medical providers. It's basically wide open. Doesn't mean we're going to do it all. We're not going to do pain management. That doesn't fit with my philosophy. Doesn't matter if it fits with yours, great. Go ahead. You can do pain management, right? You could do orthopedics. You could hire orthopedic and neurologists or whatever it is you want to do. But it obviously depends on your state. Florida it's pretty open, allows us to do all that. But it had to kind of jive with our philosophy and what we wanted to do as well. So
Yeah,
the challenges with medical providers is that you're not their thinking is very different than chiropractors. They're very in a box thinking. They're very I'd say generally speaking, they tend to be a little more afraid of everything.
yeah,
Chiropractors were a little more free spirited. I love it. We're all unique. We're all different. And um, yeah. So there's challenges there too. We're like, just go ahead and take care of the patient. You don't need to refer out for that. That's something you can handle, but I can't overstep my bounds in their decision making too sometimes, which is difficult. But
yeah. Yeah, that's great. I love that. I want to turn attention to so you've had the Business Academy helping you through all these different, setting up your organization, training your staff. I know we've spent a lot of time with managers in the past with just like whether it's a leadership course or an executive course or it's on the numerous different types of trainings that we do. Um, but I want to take a step and go over like lessons learned and what are some of your insights are. So like if you look back, is there something you wish you would have done differently when starting or expanding your clinics?
um, I mean everything I think you have to learn it sometimes by doing, right? And so there's a lot of things like obviously like marketing, having a full-time marketing person. That was the very first thing that was the business academy told me to do years ago is, I think we were averaging like, I think around 15 to 25 new patients a month. It varied because
Yeah,
of snowbirds. So some months we would get, in the summer months, we'd get 15 or 12 a month. And in the winter, we'd have 20 or 25 sometimes. And just the consistency of having new patients come in every single week was obviously game changing for the practice because you hire the market. So yeah, I wish I would have hired a marketer. And then there's times when we kind of dropped the marketing person because I didn't want to pay for them. And marketers are they're worth their weight in gold when they're good, and they're um you have to I've got one now that she's been with us probably for 5 years, and like I hope she never leaves. And I don't think she ever wants to leave. She's actually, her purpose is different. So understanding her purpose is to go on mission trips for her church. And so she works 3 days a week, but she gets 5 days of work done in 3 days. And she wants time off to go to Africa, to go to Fiji, to go wherever for her mission trips for her church. And so, understanding that from my perspective is like, yeah, I'll work with you on that if you
Mhm.
will work with me and what our goals are here. So she's the senior marketer, and now she can help other junior marketers in the other clinics, run all of our marketing programs. And so she's running, 10 different marketing programs, but she's not always the one doing all of it as well too. So that's part of that
Yeah.
development, right? So hiring a marketer was crucial to the beginning because it took that off of my head,
Hmm.
opened up that brain space for me to do other things in the practice, and really increased my income. And then the second thing that, was game changing was having a organized report of findings. Before I was just like, all right, come in next week 3 times. If you're not better, we'll do 3 more times. And if you are better, we'll drop it down to 2. And, just streamlining that process to where patients have the ability to pay up front if they want to schedule out their appointments if they want to, and just make it easier for the front desk to hire a higher volume and a higher load. So a lot of systems that I definitely, had we known about them, we would have wanted to put them in a whole lot sooner.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I love that. Yeah, it's awesome. I don't know about you guys, but I'm having a lot of fun just getting to know more about your journey and what you've done. And I'm gonna go back just a little bit. I asked this earlier, but maybe I'm gonna ask a little bit differently here. What was the turning point or the milestone for you that made you realize that you had a business model that was working well? Like, okay, I can duplicate this.
Yeah, I don't know if there was one particular moment where I realized that, like, hey, I could duplicate this. Um, because I had tried once and then I failed, and then I tried a second time and it worked, but it wasn't like beautiful, right? It was like very ugly is what it felt like. And
Mhm.
it was going okay and it was making money. But I think it's only hit fairly recently to where I feel like, okay, now I can open up a whole lot more practices. I think it was when you get the staff, when you get that key staff that are going to stay and train and help. Right now, we've got a regional manager. Her name is Renee, and um, she was the one that was out for a couple of weeks or a little bit longer. And she goes into all the offices. She can train the case manager. She can close care plans. She can do the marketing. She can do the front desk, and she can train all of them. And she does all the HR. And it took years to get her to the point to where she is now.
Yeah,
But having key people like that, um, it opens up that door, the possibility of saying, well, let's do. She's the one that said, her goal was like, I want him to have 10 practices. I think this was a couple of years ago. And I was like, this is when I had 2 or 3. And I was like, I
hmm.
don't know about that. That's a little bit a lot. But
Yeah,
it's funny that she said that. And now I'm like, well, yeah, I guess we could do 10 practices, right? It's not
yeah.
unbearable.
I want to go, I want to tie a few things in here with what you said. I think it really stands out. So, one of the things that I'm impressed with is that you really align yourself up with your team and your team gets aligned to you. So, like you had mentioned, like you find out what their personal goals are, their professional goals are, what their financial goals are, and then you share with them what your goals are, and then you create an alignment. And I think that's a testament to having a staff that has stayed around for a while, and also it's helps you to grow because to your point, like when you first started, you were wearing every single hat, you're doing everything, and the only way that you can expand and grow is to have good people who are helping with that. I mean, I've always said nothing great, nothing big can really ever happen if you're doing it by yourself, right? So you've done, I think, really well at getting your staff trained up, and and I tell you what, when we do workshops, I would say like I think you have a staff member almost every single time at a workshop that where they're learning something, they're reviewing something, they're taking a course, and I think that's the epitome of someone who's really successful with the business academy is that they understand the systems, they put the systems in, but then they get their staff trained in it so that it's duplicatable, and so then that kind of creates some freedom for you, which you know I would say that the most successful people in our system are doing those things, and it's really fun talking to you and seeing how that's transpired for you. And there's not many. I wish we had more people who came right out of school and joined the business academy. Like I'm trying to figure that one out right now because typically what we see are people who have really struggled for a while, and I'm the poster child of that. I struggled for a while. I had a 35% close rate, like getting people converted onto care. So I had to work on myself. And that's how I found the business academy and it helped me increase that, right? But not too many people come out of school like just jumping in and taking, courses and learning how to be a business. And we come out of school like, hey, I know how to be a clinician, I know how to take care of a patient, but very few people I ever speak to took any type of courses on being a business, and so yeah, we'll have to get together and figure out how we do that, especially for, being an alum here in Florida. Like we need to figure out how we get people started earlier on so that they can have the same type of growth, and duplicate things. So,
Yeah.
um, hey, so future vision, what's your future vision and advice? So, where do you see your clinics in 5 years?
Yeah, it's always tough to predict that far ahead. I mean, you write them down, right? You write down your goals, and but they change all the time. It's amazing to see what manifests itself when you write it down. And then, like I did when I was 10 or 12 years old, and I wrote down that I wanted to be a business owner. I had forgotten about that completely until, 5 years ago. I went back and I looked and I said, wow, a lot of these things that I wrote down came to pass. I didn't become a professional soccer player. That was one of them. I didn't climb Mount Everest yet. There's a few things in there that I haven't done yet, but it's pretty amazing what, even your 10-year-old, 12-year-old mind can think of that can happen. So yeah, I write down and I update every single year my 1, 3, 5 year goals. Yeah, I could definitely see, easily getting to 10 practices at this point and easily, multi-state, going to different areas in the US, and hitting and targeting some of the areas that need it the most, with some bigger practices. Of course, I don't want to do that if it's going to take away time, right? For my family. Um, that's part of my vision as well too, is that I've got the time to spend with my family and take our vacations. One of the first things I do every year is I plan out our vacations. So uh, block off my weeks, block off what we're going to be doing for family vacation. My oldest son, he's got 3 more summers till he goes to college or goes on a church mission, and we got to make every one of those summers count. And then I've got 15 more total till my youngest is out. 15 is not a lot. I don't know. Doesn't
Yeah,
feel like a lot. 15 more summers.
yeah,
So we want to make all the summers count and all the spring breaks count and everything else in between as well too. So um, yeah, looking forward to it.
yeah. Well, I tell you what, I love how you schedule your vacations first. It's kind of like paying yourself first, right?
Profit
It's like,
first.
yeah.
Yeah.
And last question I have for you before we open it up to questions from the group. So if you have questions, guys, just put it in the chat box, but you'll be able to unmute yourself here soon and fire away. Or maybe we'll do a raise your hand kind of thing. But regardless, I want you guys to ask questions. But the last question I have is, what's the last bit of advice you'd give the group here when considering opening up their own practice and or expanding? What was that? What's that one or two nuggets that you would share?
Uh, yeah, I don't know if I have
You've given a lot. You've given a lot already, right?
anything great advice there, but yeah, you don't know unless you try, and you don't know unless you try, and then you only lose when you quit. So I mean, everyone everyone fails, but you learn, those are lessons that you learned. And yeah, there's going to be failures. Every day there's failures, right? I think the problem is not expecting there to be any problems. There's always going to be
Yeah.
problems, right?
Yeah.
I coach my kids' flag football teams, and I see these other coaches get so mad at the referees every week, every Saturday. They're getting thrown out of games, and I'm like, guys, the refs are going to make 2 to 3 bad calls a game. You got to expect it, right? You got to expect the problems are going to come, and then you just handle them. And so, um, expecting there's going to be problems, but expecting you're going to be able to overcome all of them is part of that journey. And um, yeah, it makes it a lot easier with a coach. That's for sure. I would, my biggest commitment for or reason why I think I succeeded partly was because I had to pay a bunch of money, and if I'm going to pay someone a bunch of money in the business academy to do something, then I'm going to stick to it, and I'm going to either prove that it works or prove that it doesn't. And for me, it was, yeah, if I'm going to pay the money to do it, I'm going to prove that it works or that it doesn't. I'm going to do everything you tell me to do to make sure that it works. And so I followed things exactly. And I told my wife, here's what we're committing to, here's what we're doing, because I want to follow it exactly to see if it works or to see if it doesn't.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was my approach, and it's worked well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Hey, fun fact. I don't remember the tournament or the show you used to do that was televised where you would do the challenges. What was that called?
American Ninja Warrior. Yeah.
American Ninja Warrior. For those of you who don't know, Dr. Tim here was a participant and did fairly well, if I remember correctly. But I
Uh,
love it because your kids bought into it too because you were building like obstacle courses like in your backyard, I think. And
yeah.
yeah,
That was fun. It was a good time to be on the show. That didn't do that great for sure, but it was an amazing experience. I got my 15 seconds of airtime on NBC, and I think the commentator is always making jokes, and when I fell, he said the chiropractor couldn't make the adjustment. I splashed into the water, so
oh wow.
it was fun.
All right. Well, hey, thank you so much, Dr. Tim. Hey, for the group here, questions. Now's the time to ask some questions for Dr. Tim.
Eh,
We've got like a few minutes left here. Yes, sir.
Can
If
I
you have a
say can I say this too real quick? Uh,
yes.
Add me on Facebook. Let's be friends, right? Like I like all chiropractors all across the country. So there's always like great resources to work with each other and refer patients and whatever. So look me up if you feel like you want to, and send a friend request. I'd appreciate that as well too, just because I like seeing other chiropractors and what they're up to.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Hey, so for those of you who would like to schedule that, I definitely take advantage of that strategic call with Quentin. In the chat box, you have a link to schedule. It doesn't cost you anything but a little bit of time to find out if this is the right fit for you. Quentin will tell you, hey, if the Business Academy can help you, great. If it can't, he'll let you know. From just systems to if you want to medically integrate, we help offices with that as well. And he'll be the first to tell you if you're not ready for it or not. We don't want to waste anyone's money or time if you're not ready for that, because that is a big leap. But I want to open up for questions here. We've got a few more minutes here. Any questions for Dr. Tim? Can you tell me more about the testing you use on applicants and where to find them? That's from Richard.
Let me go to my email right now because I don't even remember the name of the company here. I'll give you the name. Recruit test. Let's see here. It's called hirebox.com is the company we're using. I know there's another one the Business Academy uses as well too, but Hirebox, one word, HIREBOX.com. Yeah, they got all different kinds of tests, different systems that you can use with them too. I don't even know which one we have of theirs, but I found that it's uh, very useful.
The Business Academy, Quentin, do we still have access to the, IQ testing, personality
We do,
testing?
we do, yeah.
Okay.
So we do a personnel potential analysis, which gives you 10 different aspects of where that person is at. It gives you an IQ test, and then we do an aptitude test. And the aptitude test will tell you whether that person is going to follow your directions or not. And what I typically say with testing is that nothing is fail safe until you get the person in and they're an employee in your office. But what testing does is it helps you to weed out who is not going to work out for you, and you can make a lot less mistakes by getting testing done and getting that done. And I think Gary and Tim, you guys can both attest to that as far as that goes.
I
Yeah.
used to test. I used to test as well. And the funny thing is anytime this is how powerful that testing is, gang. Every time I hired someone and I didn't look at that testing, if I was like, oh, that's just the, the the indicators I was getting from them, they don't have that kind of quality. Then I would hire them, and then a few weeks or a month into employment, that quality that was picked up on that testing would show like the quality I don't want, and so it is a thing I would do as well. Another question, Tim, was what was your first aha moment with the Business Academy?
For sure, it was when we when we hired the marketer. She went out and she did an event without me being present. It was a pamper massage a teacher event, and I didn't even know what she was doing exactly, right? Like TBA coached her how to do it, gave her the instructions on how to do it. She went out, she did it, and then she scheduled 17 new patients for the following week. Um, and we'd been averaging 17 new patients a month. So she basically quadrupled. We didn't have enough room to put them in, right? And so that was my like, holy cow, like, what are the possibilities then of what we can do with this? And then the very next week she had another one and she had 17. I was like, we have a problem now. We don't have enough space. She was working out of a closet. I was like, I can't handle all these new patients, right? It was a great problem to have. And so that was my first like, hey, this works. I was paying her, I don't know, back then it was probably $12 an hour or $10 an hour because it was like 10 years ago. But and then paid her bonuses, on top of it. But for me, that was my first wake up call, like, hey, this really works. And then I think I started with the Business Academy and that was like October or November of 2011 and 2011, 2012. And within a month, we were hitting our highest evers in patient visits. We were at, I've heard stories of other people joining the Business Academy where they skyrocket and it's, unbelievable numbers. My growth has always been very consistent, year over year, consistent and steady. I've had moments where it goes up really fast and then has a little dip sometimes, but it's always been consistent and steady year over year.
Yeah. The funny thing is you mentioned that. I remember when I learned how to do a better report of findings, and my closing percentage went from like 35% to 80%, and it created all kinds of problems. And that's the thing, guys. What's going to happen is, uh, when you start to learn new systems, you're going to see for lack of better words, where your break points are. The things that you're going to have to change or adapt and create new policies and new procedures, et cetera, because as you grow, you're going to see like, do I have enough space? But our intention is always like, we want you guys to have good problems. And to me, good problems are expansion problems. Those are problems of I'm paying more taxes. I'm going to move to a different zip code so that my kids get the education you want. You're in a better school system. I can donate more money to my church. We want those types of problems. We want or I got to hire more staff. Because I'm expanding. Those are still problems, but they're way better than the alternative of I'm having a hard time making it, or I've got to let a staff go because I don't have the income. And so I love that though. I didn't know that about you. I didn't know that your marketing was that first big thing for you. I mean, that's going from 17 a month to 17 in a week. That's gonna show you some areas that you have to improve upon.
And then the next month is when I went and did the ROF training. So I flew out, I took a week out of my practice and I flew to California from Florida because that's where they were based at the time. And then when I came back from that, that was my second aha moment where, you know, that I couldn't believe people were willing to pay up front, and it wasn't even large amounts of money, right? It was a couple $1,000, $1,000. And uh yeah, it was amazing to see like, hey, people will pay and they want to schedule and they were happy and they referred people. Like, this is great. So yeah.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Another question. Did you start off with staff? At what point did you feel comfortable covering payroll?
So I had one front desk and she was only working a few days a week, and I had a biller who worked part-time couple, and she was, 2 days a week, maybe at the most. Both of those staff surprisingly are still with me. The two very first staff
Wow.
I had, which
14 years.
I've gone through hundreds of other staff.
Wow.
But these ones have stayed, and they've been good hires and with me through it. Yeah, covering overhead. I mean, yeah, a staff member should pay for themselves, right? So if you hire a marketer and they bring in, even maybe if you don't have any staff, you hire a front desk and a marketer, they can do both jobs, right? And when they're not doing front desk, then they're out marketing. And if that's made clear to them up front, then they can bring in, they will pay for themselves by bringing in new patients. If a new patient to you is worth $1,000 or $500 or whatever it is that your case value is, maybe it's $3,000 if you're medical, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so think of how many new patients does that person need to bring in to pay for themselves. And marketing, that's an easy one to figure out. Front desk is the same thing, right? How valuable is someone answering your phones or calling all your leads? We run Facebook ads, and if they're calling them fast, they get them scheduled. If they don't schedule. So um, there's formulas you can use to work that out. But it would be, specific or dependent on your practice of how you'd figure out when to hire somebody. It's definitely something you can probably cover with Quentin. I would save that for your phone call with him. I'm sure you
Yeah.
can. Yeah.
It made me think too. Um, I've been getting a lot of questions lately about integrating an office, like adding medical to it. And I have to say, like being around, I medically integrated in like 2010 or 11. And I've been with the Business Academy since 2005. And one of the things came to realize quickly was that the people that had uh, been with the Business Academy and then medically integrated after they had joined, versus people who just integrated without taking the Business Academy, like courses and stuff, far outdid and did better. And so just let the group know if you're thinking of medically integrating, that is something that the Business Academy does now as well. Again, that's a question for Quentin when you get on that call. Um, any other questions, guys? We're down to maybe one more question. And then I know Tim, you gotta get off and do your thing. But one last question for Dr. Tim. Anybody going once, going twice? All right, guys. Tim, thank you so much for joining us today. It was really a pleasure. Get to know you a little bit more in your story. So that's awesome. Quentin, is there anything that you'd like to close the group with?
No, well, I guess yes. So go ahead and schedule that appointment, and then otherwise Teresa will reach out, and we'll Teresa or Mari will reach out, and we'll go ahead and get that scheduled there. Teresa, if you could put me into a breakout room with Dr. Randy, I'd like to catch up with him and kind of go along with that, because I know that we've been talking there. And then I guess, Tim, you'd be willing to talk to anybody if they want to talk to you, and I can give them your phone. Is that right?
Sure. Yeah. Connect with me on Facebook, or a phone number, text me. Happy to do a phone call. Yeah. Just share any specific questions you have. I will tell you the truth, down the dirty, the
Awesome.
good.
Awesome. All right. Thanks a lot.